Hello and welcome to the ABCs of Education. I'm Jerry Rankin, the host and the producer of the show. If you'd like to contact me for any reason, please contact me at theabced@yahoo.com. Tonight I'm very happy to have Jennifer Eifrig, and she's an author, and we have a couple of books that we're going to be talking about. The first segment is going to be talking about her background and who was influential in her life that got on this track of writing. And the second half will be more about the writing, publishing, authoring, and how to get started for the viewers that might be interested in doing that, and something that in the area that you might be able to find that you can join and all that. We all have a book in ourselves. I know I do, and I'm sure I know you do because you brought a couple of your books with you. And so we get started. Jennifer, thank you again for coming on the show.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. This is actually, I think, the second time.
Yes, and the first time, a couple of years ago, I was in the back room pushing all the buttons.
Right. So we didn't have that.
And was it Beth?
It was Beth Latham.
Okay,
Yep.
she was on last month.
Yeah.
She was on my Valentine's Day show.
Oh,
So this is St. Patty's Day.
Yeah.
Happy St. Patty's Day,
Happy
folks.
St. Patrick's Day. Wearing the green.
Yeah, the green and the green hat, the green water even too. See that?
We're going.
So, getting back to you and your education, grammar school, did anybody influence you in writing, or did you keep diaries?
You know, I didn't. I wasn't a diarist. Although, you know, you start it once in a while, but I never kept up with it. I think I probably got a diary as a birthday present once or twice, and they have those cute little locks on them, and that's fun. My girls have about 10 of them that they get for birthday presents, and then they start and then they stop. So I know I was never really a diarist, but I always just loved language, and I loved storytelling. My first word, if I want to show off, it was book.
When you're a little baby, huh?
When I was a baby, it was
Isn't
book.
that funny?
Yep. It wasn't mama, wasn't food, no, book. So I don't know. I learned to read before I came to kindergarten, and by the time I was in second grade, I was pestering my father for something to read, and he got annoyed that I was bugging him, and he handed me Moby Dick when I was in second grade.
Wow.
And I actually started it, and if you've ever read Moby Dick, the beginning and the end are kind of exciting, but there's this whole middle part that it's just way too incomprehensible for most people, especially a second grader. So I never finished it, but I hid it because I didn't want to admit to him that I didn't finish the book. So I was very fortunate. I went to all public schools, but we had great teachers, and I had a couple of really spectacular English teachers that helped me out.
In high school?
In 8th grade and in high school.
Okay, that's good. And what are their names? Can you remember those?
I was trying so hard to remember their names. I'm bad with names. I can remember their faces. I'm sure they're gone because they were older ladies at the time.
And where was the high school?
It doesn't even exist anymore. I went to Framingham North High School in Framingham, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And at the time there were two. They were north and south, but now there's just Framingham High again.
Okay, interesting. And what did they influence? I mean, how did they influence you in your English classes?
Well, there are certain rules that I still use. Make words count. I had in high school, my English teacher that I was thinking of, gosh, I wish I could remember her name. This is terrible. I could so see her face. She would give you back, if you did an essay, you always had to set a composition. If you used the words get, thing, stuff, or some, she would just hand it back to you with a 0 grade and say, find a word that actually means what you're trying to say.
Okay.
And if you think about it, we use those words all the time, get, thing, some, stuff, but they're very generic. They don't really mean anything. And to this day, when I come across the word thing in someone's writing that isn't, just an email or whatever, I just exit out. And I say, find a word.
I read something, I think in a writer's magazine a long time ago, something about the word that. You can leave the word that out of it, most everything, and it still makes sense.
Yep, most of the time. Extra words are bad. And I write long books, so that's saying something.
Now, in high school you had some good English teachers, and college?
I was an English major.
Oh, okay.
I went to Bates College in Lewiston, Maine. Poor things. I'm sure they're buried in snow right now.
Mm.
And it was kind of the same. When I say I was an English major, I was an English major. I didn't even really read that much American literature. And, it was almost like going to a history class. You had to learn English history in order to understand the literature of the time. They really placed it in context. And what they didn't do was give you creative writing classes. You couldn't take them, except as a short term. And that didn't really count towards your GPA. And the reason that I was told that, I kind of wanted to be a writer at the time, and my advisor, Mr. Nelson, Professor Nelson, he's gone too, I believe. Do remember his name. He said, well, you're 19. You really don't have anything worth saying.
Oh my gosh.
And it's true. If you think about it, it's like you have to read first before you can learn to write.
Mm-hmm.
And read everything that you possibly can. Read the back of cereal boxes. Nowadays, back then it was read the newspaper. Now it's read the internet. Read trash. Read classics. Read everything you can and learn from it.
Did you ever finish Moby Dick?
I did twice.
Twice, huh?
Twice. I think I'm probably the only person I know that read it twice.
Okay. And do you still have the book?
Yes, I do.
Wow, from second grade was it, or 2 years old?
No, yeah, that one
Second grade.
Second grade. It was second grade. So I
okay.
would have been 7 and 8.
Okay.
Thereabouts.
That's nice to keep.
Yeah.
Remember my daughter, her favorite book was Fun at the Beach.
Oh.
And that's a little golden book,
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know, over the years it was lost in something. I was trying to find the Fun at the Beach, and I couldn't find it. So if anybody out there knows Fun at the Beach, let me know.
We'll have to look for that.
Yes. It's a little tiny golden book
Mm-hmm.
thing, and lots of pictures and little words and things like that. And it's funny, my son was an English major and in college, and now he got his master's, and now he's a high school teacher in Manhattan. So it's interesting. I know he has a book inside of him also.
That's what they tell us. Everyone has a book in there. And, you have to tell your story. Only you can write your book.
Very true. When did you get the inkling of how many books have you written?
Well, I'll admit to 2 novels that are published. I'm working on a third. I have several in the past that we won't even talk about.
Okay, they're practice ones, huh?
They're practice ones, that's right. I actually, in high school, I'll tell this story, I would write by hand. I didn't even have a computer back then. I would write at lunchtime. And in the afternoon study hall, I had friends, and I would put my friends as characters into the story, and then they would pass the pages around, and they wanted, because I had like a little serial novel thing going. Every day I'd give them something new.
Okay. Did they enjoy that, or did they get mad at you?
No, they I was always, I knew enough not to put anyone as like the villain or,
Yeah,
unfavorable. Yeah.
Yeah, I read something recently, I think it was on the internet, speaking of internets, that you can get a shirt. I'm a writer, anything you say can be in a book.
Oh, yes. Actually, that's on one of my Facebook pages. Careful, or you'll end up in my novel.
That's another thing. You have a lot of wwws.
I do.
Now,
I do.
you have one for authoring.
Yes.
You have one for Facebook.
Yep.
Are you taking new friends?
Oh, all the time.
Okay.
Last count, I think I have 362 fans.
Oh. Now,
I would love some more.
What's your Facebook?
My Facebook is www.facebook.com/J, Jennifer, E, Eifrig, A, author, all one word.
Hope you got it all on the same. Okay, it's there on the screen.
Yeah, you can.
And your other www?
My other www, well, if you can imagine, writing doesn't make a ton of money.
I can't imagine
No,
that.
you can't imagine
I know
that.
Stephen King, he's a good buddy of mine.
Stephen is an amazing person, I really have to say, and a great writer, too. I'm actually reading one of his right now. He makes money.
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah. James Patterson makes money.
Yes.
Scott Turow makes money. A few others make money, too.
Some ladies, too.
Some
make money,
ladies.
yes.
Yeah, Stephanie Myers did pretty well. She had a little series back there,
Yeah.
But for the rest of us, it doesn't pay the bills. So one of my wwws is my consulting company. I actually do nonprofit consulting about 3 days a week.
And what do you consult?
What do I consult? Mostly, if you can imagine, Writing.
Well, that's convenient.
Grant writing, to be
Oh,
specific, yes.
That sounds very dull.
That's what people think. I actually love it.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those oddities that you have to be creative.
Okay.
And right now I'm working on a grant for a client that I have written 6 times, and we've gotten it every year, but you do kind of get a little bored saying the same thing about the same program over and over again. So you do actually have to find ways to freshen up your grant application. And sometimes you have to be very creative about the budget. But I actually love filling out forms, and I love answering those questions.
Okay.
And these days you have to be super concise when we're talking about words count.
Sure.
In some cases, your applications are character limited now because they're done online. And they'll be 3, 5, 1,500 characters, including spaces and punctuation.
Including spaces.
Yeah,
Oh,
to answer those
interesting.
questions. Yep.
Did you ever take any writing courses in high school or college?
Well, as I said, I was an English major, so I read everything I was supposed to read. So I can tell you, and I learned, I took a class called The Novel. So I can tell you how a novel is structured. I can tell you about narrative arc. I can tell you about symbolism. I can tell you about dialectic. I can tell you
I think
about...
you just lost me.
Yeah.
That's
All
okay.
kinds of
You'll
things.
teach me in very quick
I
terms.
can teach you, yeah. Writing a novel is one of those things that you can actually learn how to do. There are actually rules
Okay.
for doing it.
Now, where do you find the rules?
Where do you find the rules? Well, the best way to find the rules is to read a really good book.
They have a rule book?
Yeah,
A
there
book on rules?
are. Actually, talk about Stephen King. He has a book called On Writing.
On right, okay.
That's very useful. A lot of people really listen to what Stephen has to say about writing. He's incredibly prolific and talented. So, I would definitely point
I
people
would
in that
imagine
direction.
colleges and universities would have some sort of writing courses for the,
Tons.
yeah. How about,
Yeah, the MFA in creative writing is kind of a cash cow for universities these days, because you don't get grants to go there. You have to pay, and there are tons of people out there apparently who are trying to do creative writing, because there are these programs. Pick up a copy of Poets and Writers magazine, and about half of it will be ads for various universities.
what
and
about
their writing
community
programs.
colleges?
Community colleges do have them. In fact, I took a class at night at Middlesex Community College a few years ago. It was about publishing, how to get into the publishing world. And it was taught by a person I'm still in contact with. And he's a creative writer. He does mostly shorts and flash fiction.
Now, do libraries in the local areas have courses of one time or another, or lectures?
Most of them do. Most of them do. The Russell Library in Middletown, where we live, has several writing groups that meet. There's one that's just for veterans, so people who have experienced life in the military and want to do memoir,
Sure.
presumably, but I imagine fiction would be fine too. And then there's a general writing group called the Russell Writers. I don't participate, but I know people who do, and that's more of a what's called craft class. You're learning how to actually do it. So like they'll give you a writing prompt. They'll say, pick the object next to you and the last person you talk to and put them together in a scene.
And for 2 pages, double
Right.
space.
Right,
And
exactly.
bring it in next month.
Bring it in next time and
for-
we'll go through it.
For a nice critique. I think I joined that many years ago. It was one of the Saturdays. I think it